This is Talking My Walking. I am Rodrigo Ribeiro, and today I'm going to talk about justice, truth, trust, and peace. The economy, or any economy, is part of the society. It's a subsystem of the society. As any society is a subsystem of nature. So that's how it works. It's not the other way around as we have today, as is the economy is the only thing that matters, and especially the growth economy. So where does justice, truth, trust, and justice fits in a wider system? In the wider system that we are in relation, that the economy is as a subsystem of to sustain society, and society and civilization as part of nature. That's not to conquer nature or to domesticate nature, to colonize nature, to destroy nature, but that everything is part. A system that is based exactly on justice and trust. Everything is integrated. We cannot have an economy without a society, and much less without nature. So when we think about the economy, we cannot have economics of justice if you don't have economics of trust, economics of truth, economics of peace. Because peace actually is the result. It's not, we cannot talk about peace without talking about justice. And we cannot talk about justice without understanding the meaning of truth. What's the role of truth? And of course, and without trust is impossible. So, and then we can talk about cooperation, reciprocity, solidarity, compassion, empathy. How does it become part of the economy, of the rules? Because there is no economy, there is not such thing as a free market economy. Every market has rules. Rules, laws, and principles. That's how human systems work, and especially complex societies work. There is the need for organization, and the rules and regulations are part of having an organized society. It's impossible to have an organized society without rules, without principles, without a system of rewards and punishment, which is required. What should be the purpose of the rules and the law systems? You have a different. What are the purpose of what should be and what is actually the purpose of them? Who controls them? Who designs them? Who writes the laws? Are the laws and the rules and the principles and values based that the outcome of them is justice, truth, and trust? Or is it just the purpose to serve special interests. We know that we do not live in democracies. We live in managed democracies, not our democracies are managed by people that are paid or bought by interests, and that's why it's very important we cannot. My point is, we cannot separate the value system, the value and principle system, the reward and punish system, and the institutions, the law system, every law, from what is the purpose of the society itself and the purpose of the economy, because we don't need to explain the purpose of nature. Nature doesn't need to have a purpose. Nature is just nature. The purpose of nature is not to be a warehouse, is not to be just to provide the resources for human civilization. That is another misconception, because we can have, and we do have, systems that are based in misconceptions, in the assumptions that we take for granted, that we believe they are like that because of human nature, and that's part of the human nature, and therefore we cannot have any other forms of civilization or society or economies but the ones we have, because we do not analyze human societies as they have evolved. They have evolved in connection and interdependence with nature. That's how we grew as a species. That's how every species survives. That's a system of dynamic in that interdependence. That's why we call it ecosystems, where are so many life forms, and I mean, and the system is the water, everything that that survives and grows and thrives in an interdependent connection. Why should we assume that we just own it? It's about owning it and controlling it. And especially, why should we just be able to understand it as private enterprise? As there is nothing else but the only way to optimize resource exploitation, to grow economically, to be efficient. It's to own and control and modify all systems, in order that we say that's because it's economic, that is required for progress and to grow the economy, which is necessary for the for human provisioning. But it's true to a certain extent, but it's not true in absolute terms, because we just misrepresent it. We just do not have there are assumptions and presumptions, and prejudices that we take them as true, as truth, as axioms, as true axioms, but they are not. They are just part of a system that is exploitative, that exploits human beings, exploits nature, and doesn't care, and talks about externalities, which what doesn't doesn't have value for the economic system, and therefore we have this dysfunctional system that is not based on truth, is not based on justice, is not based on trust. That's why we need contracts for everything, and we need law systems that are unfair. That's for sure, to say the least, and therefore we cannot have peace, because the systems we have, they are in a permanent war, a war against nature, a war to conquer nature. Not even a war against nature, it's a war to conquer nature, to use. And this war is a war that we should, that is going to be our destruction. And that's why technology is not our salvation. That's not because science is not important. Technology could help us, could help humanity a lot, but not for the purpose that technology and science is based. The purpose of science and technology is power and control. That's why the first purpose of the technological innovation, the technological innovations and the science advancements are applied to the military. That for some country to have an edge, some sort of edge over other countries. That is madness. This is a mad civilization. This imperialist civilization should be perceived by us, by most of us, as a system that is obsolete. It is obsolete, and it doesn't serve. It is a system that is based in wrong assumptions, and it has always been a system that is for the purpose of it is to the purpose of this system is not to provide for humanity. It is to use the majority of humanity, as it's to use and abuse nature, to exploit the resources and manipulate everything for accumulation, power and control. And we should deal with this. But in order to deal with this, we need to understand the connection. Why are our societies, and why do we behave the way we behave? Why we perceive the world and ourselves, and we, instead of understanding that the culture we have is not a culture of justice, is not a culture of trust, of honesty, it's not a culture of truth, it's a culture of lies. It's a culture based on a web of lies. It's a web of deception. That's why we cannot perceive. That's why Einstein said that we cannot solve the problems with the same mindset that created them. We need other intellectual tools, and we can only be able to build them if we try to understand what are the roots of our problems? What are the roots of our societal problems? Why is the economy? Why is everything so? What's wrong? If we are not able to diagnose the true roots and the causes of the problems and the diseases and the disorders and dysfunctions, how can we even feel the need to solve them? Because we see the problem in the human condition. We don't see the problem that some of us, as individuals or as organized groups, we can control. We can be controlled by these groups, and especially because those groups, they don't want an economy of justice or an economy of sufficiency. They want an economy that for the accumulation for themselves, and they create a system. They will shape the institutions. They will try at least to influence the institutions, like the institutions that are supposed to be the pillars of democracy, legislative, executive, and judicial, that they should be the pillars, separated to be the pillars of democracy and the free press, you know. But it doesn't work like that. It's a web of deception. And it's a web of deception not because we are necessarily or we want to or we are driven by deception. No, that's not the case. We need to trust each other. That's how we can survive as a species. Trust was always a bond. It's a trust is part of a social bond that is required for a group, for a community, or a tribe to survive. It is not a bonus. It is not a choice. It was not a choice. It was required for survival as part of a social species. That you can see, you can observe that in animals as well. How important trust is. If we assume that the imperialist civilizational paradigm is the norm by default, we won't be able to move on. We won't be able to even think about, discuss, and debate what could be the alternatives. Because the only debate that there is the debate about capitalist system as kind of the default system, and then socialism and communism. Okay? But I think we can have a wider debate, a deeper debate about the human condition itself. Because even, I know the human species have a lot of flaws. We are flawed in many ways. And we need to have a system that is under permanent vigilance. I don't mean the negative way, okay? It's exactly the opposite. the vigilance needs to be done by democratically, by the demos, by us, not from top down, as we accept as the rule. Again, another assumption. But even if we think that the problem is the human condition because we have always behaved like that, which is not true anyways, that we need to conquer, we want to expand, you want to conquer everything, we want to every corner of the world, and we kill because we know, most of the human history was not like that. It's not because human beings, we can have two groups of people, two communities that they live kind of next to each other, not just in touch with each other. I mean, just that they can live in the same area of the globe, but they are not connected to each other. They just evolved separately, and they can have totally different cultures, and because why it's that? It's because it depends on what the people as a group allowed unintentionally, to become the pillars of the culture. And that's where I believe we really need to work. We need to work, that it is very important to understand that the culture, who shapes the culture, who writes the values, the norms, the laws, the rules, and everything else. The practical ones, but also I do mean at every level, moral level, the laws of society, the laws of the economy, every kind of law system and principles and values, they will influence the laws by which we govern our lives. And then so we can have a completely different picture of the world. I mean, a cosmology, a perception of ourselves, that it is it has nothing to do. I mean, of course, it is because we are what we are as a species, so that has to do with our condition, but is not inherent. We are not bad by nature. We can build systems, cultural systems, economic systems, societal systems that can be more humane, and others that can be more inhumane. What does that mean? That we have the freedom, let's put it this way, to create a panoply of different models and systems by which we govern our lives. And the important point, and some of these the systems do not evolve randomly. They evolve in interdependence with nature, but they also are. It is also very important how do we collectively evolve as a particular culture, and how we allow the members of that culture to influence how the laws, the rules, the values that will shape the narratives that become part of our identity, that become part of how we see ourselves, how we see others, how we interact with the world, and how we interact with ourselves. That's why it is important to understand that the particularity of the human condition is to create these artificial systems, because we are domesticated animals, that we kind of domesticate each other. That's how we grow. We get an education that becomes our nature. So not because we are not born as as part of any nature or of any culture, because if when we are born, if we are taken to different cultures, we will speak different languages, and we'll get used to different habits and foods and many other things, religions and many other things. So that's not because we are not born this or that. We become this or that. And the features of the narratives, the language systems, the value system, and everything else is what shapes what we are going to become. So it's very important to understand that blaming human condition is wrong, is incorrect, is a fallacy, because it's not because the human beings are not because we are not flawed, but it's because it is very important what kind of reward and punish system we have, and the values and the laws that by which we regulate our lives and behaviors, and the understanding of the world and the understanding of ourselves. We live in plural societies, that we are allowed to be, we can choose which religion we want to follow. We have a lot of options, let's put it this way. But that gives that kind of diversity and pluralism doesn't mean that we are not following and obeying certain value systems, and that function, that are the operating system of ourselves. And that's where the laws, the laws of the economy, the principles and rules and values of the economy where we have, and our societal systems, they do have a huge influence on our behavior, on the way we perceive the world and perceive ourselves, and in how we relate to each other, because these principles and rules and laws are very important in our lives. That they are, because they are part of the regulatory system that basically we need to survive. That's why the laws of the economy and the rules of the economy are very important, because they are those rules that allow the concentration of wealth, the maximization of profit, the primacy of private property over everything else, and we just assume it as natural and as part of our condition. We do not even think that we should discuss it, or if that is normal and natural. No, it's we just assume it. We just believe it's part of how life is organized. We don't think about that as buildings, that systems that have been built by us or by specific groups among us. We don't think about it that if it's, we know that there are things that are wrong, there is injustice and inequality, and there is this and that, but that's why we also have a lot of justifications and narratives that support it, that support inequality, that explain that inequality is basically the fault of the people that are not able to compete, or are not diligent enough, or there is we do not assume that is a systemic flaw, or that is not a flaw, but that is part of a system intentionally done to make us believe in a certain way and behave in a certain way. And most of us will deny what I'm saying. Many of us that are negatively impacted by a system that is inherently, that was designed on purpose to create inequality, they do not accept it. And nevertheless, they are negatively impacted by it. But they might think it's their fault because they believe in the myth of meritocracy. And then again, that's because first we have a culture that were focused on work. The work is perceived as part of human ethics. That's hard work, as the same as hardship is. That's not the case. That's not because work is not important. It's because it is charged with a moral that is purposely. And then we have the problem. It's not a problem, but it can become a problem, which is the attachment of certain emotional states, of rejection, repulsion, with negativity. That's the negative emotions attached to certain qualities, in this case negative qualities, that people are supposed to, if people do show some, there are certain behaviors, okay? Not all behaviors. Let me try to explain. Not all behaviors are that are considered negative. They are not necessarily negative. There are, for example, many work. If I reject to do certain things, it doesn't mean that I do not want to work, But I might find, I might reject to work in a weapon factory, or I might reject to join the military, or I might reject to work in a slaughterhouse, or or if I am told to torture people or animals, I might reject it, or I might reject to produce chemicals that I know that, for example, the forever chemicals, or I might reject to work in fast fashion factories or shops, or the superfluous consumption. I might reject all the items that are part to work or participate in the economy that is that is just for superfluous consumption, for the purpose of making a few people rich, or few company rich, or private equity, or whatever it is. Because the system itself, it's not because I'm wrong, it's because I don't want to work, or it's not about working. It's about participating in an economy that is to sustain. I believe in an economy of sufficiency, a sufficiency economy where reciprocity and the precautionary principle are important. Not profit. Why should we accept as that accumulation of wealth and the growth economy is a good thing? Why should we accept that? We shouldn't. We shouldn't, because that's nothing to do with human condition. It's not a defect. It's just because we are highly adaptive, and we can become, and there are some of us that have the power, they can have the role to induce new dependencies and addictions and habits of consumption that are not for our benefit, and everybody knows it these days. But it's very difficult also to live in a society and do not be affected, kind of that you can be strong enough to say no to everything. Because in every corner, especially if you live in city environments, you find stuff to buy. Because why? Why is people so creative? Because people are driven by the profit motive, or by the other feature of our system, which is manufacture scarcity. We are pressured from this, because why do we want money? Do we want money because we want more things? Because there are so many things, so many devices and appliances and different houses and luxury. I mean, there are so many appeals to consumption and acquisition and possession that to our behavior is shaped by it, not because we are inherently like that. We can live happily lives and at the same time simple lives, but live simple lives by choice is not easy. Frugality is not for everyone. So that's because the main culture has a huge impact on our behavior as a society. And then we say that nobody, I mean, you don't have a weapon, nobody is pointing a weapon at you and making you do it. They don't need it, they don't need to do it. They can persuade us, and they create new wants and desires that they are very difficult to that they affect us. They affect because they are omnipresent. What's the role of advertisement? It's not to help us to know that the products exist. No, it's to associate certain behaviors and to associate the purchase of certain items with certain emotional states, social status, and well-being, and whatever it is. And that affects us because we are social beings. We learn by mimicry. We learn habits by mimicry. And by repetition. But that's while I'm talking about this, I need to think that this is not separate. All these painting, that all this kind of that landscape that I'm laying, it needs to be understood. That you need to see the big picture. We need to see the big picture, as we need to understand the details. And we need to see how things work with each other, how they do deeply shape our behavior and our understanding of the world and ourselves. And how we cannot dissociate, how we cannot we can, of course we need to have a system of accountability for individuals, all right? For groups, for corporations, for governments. We need that. People, corporations, groups, and whatever, they need to be accountable. They need to be, there is the need for that responsibility at the individual level. But if we do not understand by itself alone, it doesn't solve the problem. We won't solve the problem, because the problem is it's not just the case of a few rotten apples. All right, it's the basket. It's not the apples, because there will be always rotten apples, and we have to deal with that. Okay, what we cannot allow, that's the rotten apples to be the ones that shape the system. And that's what we actually have been allowing since we have this because we allowed the civilization as we know it to be organized by rotten apples, by the worst people amongst us. We allowed them to take over the system and then to shape the system according to their desires and wishes and will, and and then they just make the rest of us comply with it by law and by violence. And that's how we have been organizing society for millennia. That's how the Europeans, such a small, a lot of small countries, took over the world. Colonized almost every corner. Almost every piece of land on this earth. And we call it civilization. And many of us would believe that it is the pinnacle of what we can achieve. Because we always thought about our civilization, I mean the European civilization, as the pinnacle, as the superior, because why? Because we were able to have we have developed weapons and systems, organizing economic systems and forms of control that allowed us to control other peoples. So this is not a problem. This is not a problem because it is not a problem because all of us are bad and evil, okay? It's a problem because we allow the rotten apples to take over. And then when we create the system, many of us become rotten apples because exactly the system is built in a way, is designed to create accomplices, acolytes. They will be rewarded to help, to be part of the scheme. And then we cannot move anywhere because we are stuck. For each bad apple that we are able to disable, to take out of the system, to imprison or to whatever you can do with them, there are hundreds. Because that's what the system creates. And at this particular time, we have a global system that is like that. It doesn't mean that it's not better in some places or worse in others. Of course it is, but that's the default system. And we do need a different system, a different economic system, a different political economy, and a different civilization. The both go together. Because we need to go back, not go back, we need to move forward to understand that nature is not, we are part of nature. Nature is not supposed to be at our mercy as other peoples or animals or everything else. We cannot have a culture of a criminal culture. And that's what we have. We can do much better than what we because we can. It's not about going back again. We have to express ourselves using words and using cultural context and historical context and so many other things that, of course, we sometimes we just use the words the way we are used to. But what I mean is that we need to move forward in the sense that we need to understand that it doesn't matter how we have been behaving so far in terms of how we have been building societies and cultures and civilizations, but we need to have a different understanding, not of the human condition, but about the about how we need to organize ourselves in different ways and to harmonize ourselves with the earth systems and have a civilization. I call it ecological holistic civilization. Is just how I brand it. And ecological, social and ecological political economy. And I think we can do it and enjoy much more freedom than we have today. But we need to change how we perceive the world, how we perceive ourselves. We don't need to change our condition. We need to change how we perceive ourselves, how we perceive the world, how we relate to each other, how we understand what the society, what the economy is and what the economy is for, and the society and civilization itself. Because peace is going to be the result. Is the result of justice, truth, and trust. We just need to, we have been building societal systems and civilizations and economic systems that are anti-human, and we need to understand it. We need to understand that the only thing wrong with us, it's because we have this plastic adaptability, this capability of adapt to almost any kind of situation that makes us able to cope with a societal system that is that is humanizing us. I don't care. Maybe you think that you are very sophisticated. Maybe you believe that we are at the pinnacle of the sophistication. That is so amazing. These technologies that we can, that we were able to develop, and there is so much knowledge, and so this and so that, and so on and so forth. Nevertheless, I believe that we are becoming imbecilized. I mean, we are not getting things. We are not becoming better. It doesn't mean that we are not, everything about this is wrong and is bad. It's not what I'm trying to say. But I think we need to have a different perception. And we could do it. This is not something out of reach. We just to have a different approach, to learn how to understand, to analyze the reality with different lenses. Because we cannot build another culture and another economic systems without first being able to diagnose the problems and why they are wrong. We need to understand it before. To move on, to move away from them, to create new systems. So, I'm going to end it here for today. Thanks for listening. I will be back soon.